All right, this is going to be a video of a little fly I came up with last year. This is a hemp cord caddis pupa. The pupa itself is obviously a fly that many people tie, very productive, but I wanted to kind of put my own spin on it and try to find a material that accomplishes what I was looking for. I was looking for something that kind of absorbs water, but not at the same rate as some of the other materials, so that you get that kind of contrast there as it gets wet. And I found that in a pretty interesting material with this hemp cord. So you can kind of see how this part, a little bit of a different color, and you got the gills down the side, and that's pretty much what we're going to end up with at the end. Those eyes are a little bit bigger. I'm going to tie the one here with a little bit smaller eyes, but that's basically going to be the end result here. All right, so let's get things started here. In the vise, I have a daichii 1150 in a size 10. This is a really good pupa hook here. I've got a few other types of pupa hooks, but the wire is just a little too thin. This is a 1x strong wire, so it's a real sturdy hook. This is what I've been tying pretty much all of my pupas on now at this point. Thread wise, pretty simple, just some brown UTC 70. And I'm going to get my threads started at a point right about there, where I'm kind of measuring out how long I want this front part to be. So we'll get that snipped off. All right, material. So as I mentioned in the intro, I was looking for something that absorbs water, but still kind of holds its color or doesn't absorb water as quickly, because I wanted a little bit of a contrast there. A pupa is an emerger, an emerging insect, so you're catching it in the middle of a certain stage, and I want that that classic buggy look with still a little bit of contrast there. So what I found was I found this hemp cord, and this can be found at any craft store. I got this one at Michael's, but it comes in a few different colors. This first one's your dark brown, and it gets a little bit lighter, all the way down to that natural color. So really cool material. And what I do with it is I don't know if this is going to come up in the camera or not, but this is a pedestal base. And if you go on to pretty much any fly tying store, they have them on there. Literally just called a pedestal base. They're about $20. And what it does is it gives you a real solid platform to do all kinds of different stuff. I cut foam on it. You name it. So what I'm going to do with it this time is I'm going to take these needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to use the flat end here. And I'm going to take a stretch of this hemp cord, and I'm just going to lay it flat, and I'm going to take my pliers here, and I'm just going to run it right down that hemp cord just to kind of push it flat. And I kind of flatten it out as much as I can, so you get kind of that look. Where if you look at the part down here, see it's a lot more round. So it just kind of flattens it out a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to work with. So we're going to take that, put that right on the top of the hook shank, get a couple of loose wraps in there just to get it set. And now we're going to go all the way down the hook shank with really tight, firm wraps. And be careful not to break your thread, which can definitely happen at this step. But if it does, it does. Whatever. All right, so that's all good. Let's get that put aside. Next order of business is I'm going to take this long quill of brown ostrich herl, and I'm going to take a couple of fibers off of here, 2 of them to be specific, and I'm going to take them off the upper part of the quill because I want the shorter, finer fibers. There's some big bushy ones here in the middle, but I want these real short, fine ones. So once you do that, you're going to see how they kind of splay away a little bit. So I'm just going to take those and just slip them on to each side of the hook shank, and with a really loose wrap, get them secured. And then I'm going to wrap up the shank, securing them as we go. You don't really have to worry about being too neat. We're going to set up an underbody with another material here in a minute. Okay, so next order of business is shaping the underbody, as I just said. And what we're going to use to do that is just some simple brown possum dubbing. This is the dubbing that I use and that I have on hand, but like I said, we're really just shaping the underbody, so, you know, it doesn't really matter. Just grab any dubbing and you'll be fine. It's all going to get covered. So we're just going to make a noodle here. And the object here, once we start wrapping this, is we just want to create an underbody that's a little bit tapered. That hemp cord does have some pliability to it, but it is going to mostly follow the shape of the underbody. So we want to just kind of get the shape that we want with some dubbing. So I'm going to go all the way down here at the base where I tied in my ostrich, get a wrap in, and we're just going to make our way up the shank. And as we make our way up, we're just going to start building a little bit of a taper. And it really does not have to be perfect. You know, if you're tying a quill body fly or something like that, you really want to nail that tapered underbody because you're going to see that shape. You're going to see the shape a little bit with this fly, but not that much. So if you're a little off and swing and miss a little bit on this underbody, it's really not the end of the world. I have to do this in 2 different dubbing ropes because I have all of this filming equipment in front of me, my light and camera. This is actually a little bit of a tougher fly to film, but the last thing anybody wants is to just listen to me complain, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so once that's all good to go, what we're going to do is we're going to now work with our, a lot of focus there. Now we're going to work with our hemp cord here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that up, and you can kind of see how it's in between the 2 pieces of ostrich. And I'm going to start this process. Actually, you know what? Before I do this, let's just take our thread. Let's get a half hitch in there just to kind of knot that off. And I'll swing my cradle around. I just want to get my thread out of there so I can work easier. Okay, so we're going to take our hemp cord, and I'm just going to make 1 wrap around. So now the hemp cord is facing me. While it's facing me, what we're going to do is we're going to take the piece of ostrich closest to us, and we're going to bring it in front. We're going to wrap it around the hemp cord, and we're going to face it forward like that, and then finish our wrap and use the hemp cord to lock that piece of ostrich in place. When we come around the back, we're going to go towards the front, underneath it, come around, make sure that wrap is as close as you can get, and then we're going to finish and lock that in. So basically what we're doing, came loose. Basically what we're doing is we're just wrapping the ostrich around each wrap of the hemp cord and then using the hemp cord to lock it in. So now we're on the piece that's closest to us. I'm going to go underneath it, over the top, face it forward, and then finish your wrap and lock it in. Now, I will say that this is much easier than I'm making it look. It is a little annoying to get a feel for where you got to put your fingers, and because you are grabbing 2 pieces of material and working with them. So that's a little annoying. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. I'm making it look a little bit more difficult than it actually is because I got all this stuff in front of me that I'm trying to avoid. This is not the easiest fly to film, but what are you going to do? So just keep wrapping that around, closing your wrap and locking it in place. And once you get the hang of it and where to put your fingers and how to grab, it goes pretty quickly. And lock that in. We're almost there, just a couple more. If I was better at video editing, I would probably speed this part of the process up, but you can do the same. So just keep wrapping, locking it in. And basically the point of this is you're going to get that segmented buggy look, but this will give you something that'll hold a little bit of water on the side and give you that kind of that gill nymph look, which I like on all of my pupa. This fly has been a blast to fish too. One of my primary home rivers has a huge caddis population, and I'll get there and fish will be flying out of the water, and I always kind of wonder, what are they taking that they're flying out of the water? And it took a little while to kind of figure it out, but they're really hammering pupa, and floating one of these down either in the middle of the water column or as a dropper has really been a blast. So I've been fishing this fly quite a bit, and all I'm doing now is just getting my thread in there and just tying off everything that we just did. So get a couple of nice tight wraps in there, get everything nice and secured. Try not to break your thread. This is a step where you can certainly sling some profanities if you break something off, because you just did all that work. So thankfully that went smooth. Let's get in here. Let's snip that off. Get rid of my ostrich. And let's just kind of clean everything up here. Okay, so now we got a nice smooth platform to work. That's kind of what we end up with. You got all your gills here on the side. That material in the middle there, that's gonna absorb water, but it's not gonna darken up too much. You're still gonna maintain all the features you want, and that's kind of what I was looking for in a material of what I wanted to use. So that works out well. All right, so next order of business is we're gonna get some eyes. Now for eyes, I just got a piece of 12-pound test here on my desk. I kind of keep some rolls of that handy all the time. Should always have some monofilament ready to go of different sizes for eyes and ribbing and all kinds of stuff. Quite a few things in fly tying use mono, so I always have a couple of rolls of that laying around. So what I'm going to do is I cut a piece about that long, and I'm going to come in here with some fine point tweezers, and the point of the tweezers is basically going to give me the width of my hook shank, so that when I'm holding it like this, I can come in with some flame here. Let me get a lighter. And I'm just going to slowly kind of burn that and get that as close to the tweezers as I can, like that. And we kind of end up with a ball on one side, and we'll flip it around. Get a flame in there. Same thing. You don't want to go too fast, because if you light the mono on fire, it's not going to maintain that eye shape. I've done that many times. And there we go. Let's cool that down a little. And we're good. Okay. So what we'll do is take our little eye creation here and try to not drop it, and get that right up onto the bottom of the hook. I hate this step because I always feel like I'm going to drop it, and I'm dropping it now. I just got to regain control of it. Just get a loose wrap just to get it to stay on there. Get a couple of wraps. Now it's on there. Now we're going to kind of push it into the position we want, and we'll do some figure eights. And those figure eight wraps will get it to sit on both sides of the hook shank. There we go. That'll do. Now, some flies I just kind of leave it. For caddis, I do like my eyes to be black. So to do that, you do that pretty easily by just taking a Sharpie and just coming in here and coloring them up. It'll lighten up when it gets in the water and all that kind of stuff, but Mono's not the best at taking color. It's okay. But if you darken it up a little bit, it'll be just fine when it lightens up. Okay, so next is we're going to flip our thread like this, make a little dubbing loop, and let's tie that dubbing loop all the way back to the very start of the body. Back my thread off a little bit. And what we're going to do is take a piece of just brown CDC. And this is a step where, again, if depending on the color of hemp cord you use, you can use any color CDC. The fly that I showed you in the intro, I used natural. For this one, I'm going to use brown. So I'm just going to take my feather, and each one of these feathers can tie 2 flies. I'm just going to kind of stroke everything straight up and down. And I'm going to come in here with my material clip. This is the Stanfo clip. Petajan makes one that I think might be a little bit stronger. I think they'll probably perform a little bit better, but this Stanfo one works just fine. So we're just going to clip those fibers into here. So we got something that looks like that. And take your scissors and just go right down the quill, just cutting all those fibers off, so that what you're left with is all of the fibers vertically in this clip. And see how they're sticking up a little bit? Those little fibers sticking up there is what we're going to loop into our dubbing loop. So we'll open that up, stick those in there. Keep everything taut so they don't fly out of there. We'll give it a spin. That'll lock everything in there. And we're good to go. Now you could leave it right in your spinner if you want, but I like these English hackle pliers here. Transfer that into there and use this to spin it. Now as far as the dubbing twister goes, the one I use, this is the I don't know how you pronounce it, that Smayan, whatever. But I like it because you can squeeze this thing and it opens up your loop. So that's the twister that I like, but you can use any one really. They got the cheap little hand ones just with a loop. Those work just fine. I happen to like this one quite a bit, but really any one would work. So we're going to stroke everything back here as we wrap this on. And once we get everything applied, we're gonna close that off. And we're good. So these fibers are going to kind of splay all over the place now, but we're going to do a couple of things to kind of tame them down a little bit so that they get used to just flowing back towards the back of the fly. And part of what we're going to use to do that is the next material, which is a tuft of just simple natural hare's ear. Hare's ear is a really, really good material for this because it's got all those guard hairs and really, really gives you that buggy look. This is another step too where color can be switched up. I've tied this in an olive too, where I use some olive hare's ear. So, you know, whatever combination you want to put together, it's kind of hard to get one that's not going to be productive for you, so that's a pretty easy problem to solve. So we'll stroke everything back, get it going where we want it, and we're going to come in here with our hare's ear, and we're just going to fill in that gap right where all that CDC meets the body. Get everything flowing back, and we're good. Okay. So we are going to finish dubbing the front, but before we do that, we're going to add some legs. And the legs are going to just be 4 or 5 little strands of pheasant tail. I use 4 or 5, either or is good. This one's going to be 5. Last couple I tied is going to be 4. Really no big deal, but I'm going to snip all this crap off and try to keep the fibers together. You don't absolutely have to have the tips aligned because the legs are going to kind of splay all over the place, but they should kind of be the generally the same length. So don't go too crazy with not keeping them aligned. You don't need to, but you do want them somewhat the same length. So I'm tying this in specifically on the bottom of the hook. And once you get them tied in, I'm just going to take the back where my fingers are. And I'm just going to pull. And that's just going to adjust the length. So right about there. Get a few nice tight wraps just to kind of finish securing all that. And then we can come in front here and snip all this off. All right. So I'm going to leave those the way they are for now because the way they're kind of hanging there, they're out of my way, which is a good thing. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go back to dubbing up my thread with the rest of the dubbing for the thorax here. Might have to do this a couple times. I can't make that long of a noodle because I got the camera in front of me, but that actually looks pretty good. Yeah, we're good there. So once it's dubbed, stroke everything back, move your thread to the front of the eye, and that's where we're going to get our whip finish. So we're going to slip our thread in there. 1, 2. Get a few turns in there. Close that off. All right, so now we just have some finishing work here. I mean, it's fully fishable the way it is now, but what we want to do is I'm going to take my scissors here. I'm going to grab these legs, and I'm just going to slide the back of my scissors in here to kind of create a pinch point. And I'm just going to squeeze those legs up against those scissors. That's going to put a little bit of a bend in there, just to kind of create a crease in those fibers. Once I get that created, I'm just going to take them and just kind of mash them up against the top of the fly. All I'm doing is just trying to make a mess of the pheasant tail as much as I possibly can. And then we can come in here with our little Velcro brush here. I want to tease out a little bit of this dubbing. Just tease some of that out. And then just start making it behave towards the back of the fly by just scraping in that direction. Just getting everything teased towards the back. And one of the things you can do too is I'm going to wet my fingers here. I got this tool here that I love. It's basically just a ping pong ball floating in a little bit of water in this donut shape. And you just run your finger over it and it just kind of dampens your fingers, helps with dubbing. I don't use any dubbing wax or anything like that. If I ever do need to get a little bit of a grip, I just use this. So it's very, very useful. Just squeeze that, get some of the moisture in there. This fly looks really cool when wet. So that'll kind of get everything tucked back. Let's get in here and beat up our legs a little bit more. Kind of get them all over the place. And of course, when this gets wet and everything flows back, you're going to get that pupa look you're looking for. I've caught a ton of fish on this pattern. So it doesn't get much more buggy looking than that. I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the pupa. This is a fly that I kind of came up with, perfected a little bit last year. I've tied it in a bunch of different colors, but once it gets wet and you see the contrast of the brown and the hemp cord there, it really, really, really looks like an emerging insect. It's a really, really cool fly. This is a great fly to learn to put together. It's not particularly difficult. But once you learn to nail it, it does really, really well. I've used it as a dropper under a dry fly, use it in the middle of the water column, a lot of different ways you can fish it. but it's a really, really productive fly. Give it a try. If you have any questions, anything, just throw it in the comment section. And as I said before, this hemp cord material here, a bunch of different colors. Any craft store, you can get that, no problem at all. I haven't looked because I have a Michaels right here where I live, but I would assume if you hop on Amazon, that's probably right on there too. It's a pretty easy material to find. So tie a few of these up, give them a shot. They're really, really productive. Any questions, anything, just leave them right in the comments.